And I do appreciate y'all very much allowing me to do this and your openness. And I can say that your consideration has been a lot more open than what I got from my own country, and I compliment y'all for that. I have devoted my life to this. I started on this in 1965. I majored in accounting and economics. I've taught myself physics, chemistry, astronomy. This book here, The Energy Machine of Joseph Newman, is a unified field theory that mechanically explains gravity, electricity, magnetism, inertia, planetary motion, as well as a new source of energy. And for example, I can mechanically explain why magnets attract and repel. I have never met a man, none of y'all have ever met a man, who can give a mechanical explanation why magnets themselves mechanically attract and repel. They can give a mathematical observations of those effects. What I show in this book, and I tried to describe in the patent, is gyroscopic particles. They follow the known laws of a gyroscope, and they can be mechanically understood and anticipated and tapped into for the benefit of humanity. And that these gyroscopic particles are the basic building block of all matter. It is the smallest entity of matter. We have no instrument made in this world that can see a magnetic field. We can see the results of it, but we cannot see it. As a result of that, it's kind of like man having running water for over several thousand years. He walked through it, he saw the damage it did, yet it took us thousands of years to ever put a water wheel in that water and get useful work for it. You can't see this magnetic field, so it's put man at a big disadvantage. Now, Michael Faraday and James Clerk Maxwell, over 100 years ago, said explicitly that the energy in a magnetic field was matter in motion. Maxwell's original work is titled A Dynamical Theory, which means matter in motion. All of his mathematics has the word momentum in it. That has been taken out by the people who followed him and put in the word vector. Now he said he wished to be understood literally relative to energy in the magnetic fields. That the energy in a magnetic field, as well as within the substances in which the fields came, was matter in motion. He could not mechanically explain it. He fell all around it. He started talking about vortexes. This is a quote from his original work. In fact, I had Dr. Hastings get a copy of his original work because you can't get it very easily. But I told him, if you get Maxwell's original work, I guarantee you, you will find that he has done this. My instincts told me so because they were brilliant men. He got it at my request. He called me. He was all excited. He said, Joe, you're right. Maxwell's original work is full of it. He uses word momentum throughout it. And he was so offended, he wrote a dissertation to the colleges he had graduated from saying that Maxwell's original work had been violated. He said, Joe, if I had known that Maxwell said these things, I would have worked on the same thing that you did. But because I so much believed in Maxwell and what I had been taught, that he used the word vector and there was only potential energy and no kinetic energy, when I first talked to you, I felt sure you had to be wrong. He was tremendously offended. Now what I'm going to show you is that this technology works. The patent office officials, which is understandable, that by the known laws of physics and electroengineering, this device most certainly should not work if those laws are true. Now what I'm saying very blatantly is the scientific community made the same mistake back in 1820 twice, because prior to 1820 they said there was no connection between magnetism and electricity. Oster would go all over Europe setting up a demonstration to prove to young students there was no connection between magnetism and electricity. It was until a student set it up backwards. And when he put the magnet parallel to the wire, it turned on the current, the magnet flicked at right angles. The whole scientific world of Europe got all excited at that time because Faraday said, well, if electricity will produce magnetism, then magnetism will produce electricity. It led him to make the generator. But notice the mistake they made. They wanted the copper wire to act like a conventional magnet. They didn't learn anything from their mistake. They were so certain that a copper wire should act like a conventional magnet, they did not even take the time to ever put that magnet parallel to the wire and turn it on, because they were so biased that the conductor should act exactly like a permanent magnet or a piece of iron. Now they made the same mistake twice. They didn't learn anything. They weren't humble, because as soon as they turned the current off, they noticed that the magnet wouldn't attract to the wire. So they made the same mistake twice. They then concluded then the magnetic field comes from the current. The wire is dormant like a water pipe carrying water. Now I come along, I had never had a physics course, I had never had an electrical engineering course. I've been inventing for a living since 1961. I have a wide range of patents. from plastic covered barbells to orange pickers to pumps to automatic hammers, water seesaws, a wide range of things. And I had a very open, honest mind. And when I looked at Faraday's generator and saw that you could move a conductor down at a snail's pace in a magnetic field at right angles to a conductor, and lo and behold, this current would take off at the speed of light, it told me, my mind rebelled, and I sat up. I said, this can't be. I'm an old country boy. I've been physical all my life. I've played a lot of sports. I don't care if when I've shot pool or played baseball or what I've done. The energy imparted into that mass never goes any faster than the energy that was imparted into it. If you hit a pool ball at a slow pace, the ball's on the end of the stack, it'll take off at a slow pace. My common sense told me something was moving in that magnetic field, and that the conductor was simply deflecting this entity. And it reminded me as a boy, when I was in the country, I used to shoot ducks on a pond with a .22 rifle. And I noticed that a .22 bullet, less than 45-degree angle, would deflect off that pond. The first time I saw that, I was so shocked I forgot about the ducks and kept paying attention to it ricocheting up on a hill and hitting some oak trees. I even forgot about the ducks because I couldn't believe that water wouldn't penetrate, that bullet wouldn't penetrate the water, because I know I could take my finger and go down to that water and put it in at any angle, and it totally shocked me, because I've always been curious since I was a kid that that bullet would deflect off the water. Now I saw the same thing when I looked at Michael Faraday's generator back in 1965. Now I'm an honest person, so I put the blame where it belonged, because I could see that the magnetic field was being deflected by the conductor, and that there was some entity in that magnetic field that had some kind of mechanical characteristic would cause this effect. It took me 3 years to figure out why was it when you moved a conductor down at right angles to a magnetic field, the current would go in one direction. You'd move it up, it'd go in the opposite direction. You turn the magnet over 180 degrees, everything would reverse. But why was it when you went parallel to that lines of force, no matter how vigorously you moved it, you would get no electrical power from that system? It told me there was a mechanical characteristic taking place. Now I put the blame on me. I said, I'm not smart enough to know what this mechanical characteristic is, but their own test told me this is a mechanical characteristic. I set out to prove it to myself for over 3 years. It dominated my mind while I was inventing other inventions. And one morning some kids woke me up trying to get a wheelie on their bike. And the little kids couldn't get it up very fast. That's when they get the front end and jerk off the ground. And I said, well, if I built a flywheel, put it on the back of a bicycle, three-wheel bike, put it above the axis, they'd build up inertia on a flywheel, it'd take off. And I built such a unit with an 80-pound flywheel. It'd take off, leave black streaks on the pavement about that long, and kids' eyes would get that big. But it wasn't I didn't feel it was a safe unit, so I wanted to make it safe, and I had read the words that a gyroscope was a stabilizer. So I went to the library, got me a book on gyroscopes. And when I read that information on gyroscope, instantly, I knew the answer for 3 years that had dogged my mind. How did this current know which direction to go when you moved a conductor down to the magnetic field? What mechanical characteristic did it have to cause this result? It fit the laws of a gyroscope exactly. I explained that in this book, that when you have a gyroscope, you push down on its axis in one direction, it'll pivot in one direction. You push up, it'll go in the opposite direction. You turn it over 180 degrees, everything will reverse. You push down parallel to its axis, it will not do anything. It will not pivot. That fits the mechanical characteristics when you move a conductor through the lines of force of a magnet to a T. Now, no one has ever explained this before in the history of man. Not Faraday, not Maxwell, not anyone. Now, I don't take any credit from it. It is a gift God has given me, as He has gifted other people. If you're an artist, if you're a magician, and you have such a great gift, it's not of you. I feel it's of God that you serve humanity. I have done that, and now what I can show you is that this technology works as I say it does, because I didn't apply for a patent until 1969. Dr. Robert Smith, who was Chief of Space Environment Branch at Huntsville, is the first person who pointed out to me I had put forth a unified field theory. My honesty was so great, it never crossed my mind I was doing that until his colleagues at Huntsville pointed out to me, they complimented me on the unified field theory effort I had put forth. Then I started noticing I had done that, but in 1979, I didn't build the device. I applied for the patent, and my attorney told me, he said, Joe, nobody will believe you unless you build it. Then when I built it, it worked exactly as I said it did. When Dr. Hastings came down, his comment to me was, he said, Joe, you have followed the scientific method to a T more than anyone I have ever met or read about in my life. He said, you worked all these years, you put forth your theory, you applied for the patent, you were so certain you was right, you didn't make an effort to build it until your attorney told you nobody would believe you, and when you built it, it worked exactly as you said it did. I had units up to 10,000 pounds with a 700-pound rotary that I had built. I have brought that down to a small compact unit, and I don't use mathematics, it's just plain common sense that I use. And what you see now is a small, very small prototype that is ready for mass production. I have put my reputation on the line. I'm selling distributorships in America right now that I will be sued if I don't make delivery by December of 1994 of production models of this unit, and I know that it will be done, and I'll be running a whole house. I'm building a unit right now that's
It's underneath that, Joe.
Beg pardon?
It's underneath these books here. It fell on the floor. It's underneath the magazine. It fell on the
Okay.
floor.
And even my wife, who is not a technical person, when she saw this large magnet, now this is a small unit in the background, it weighs 120 pounds, and when she saw that and she's felt the torque on this motor, she said, oh my God, she says, when you finish this unit, she said, it's going to pick a man up and jerk him around in a circle. Now she's not a technical person, but she's got good common sense. She's felt the torque on this motor, and she can't begin to stop it, and you can't begin to stop it. This unit has a 1.5-inch shaft. It will do what she says. If you try to grab this with both hands, it will jerk you around in a circle. Now again, it's going to make these batteries run negative, make any meter that I put into it run negative. I can take any oscilloscope in the world, hook it to this meter, it will show a large negative spike. And if you keep that negative spike on the screen, as you're supposed to read an oscilloscope accurately, the input will run across the ground position, showing no input current. Now there is some input current, but it's so little to keep the negative spike on the ground, on the screen, so you can read it properly. It will dominate the screen. Now this is shown by over 30 scientists who came to my home: nuclear physicists, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, structural engineers, civil engineers, chemists, and people have all ran the same test, gave affidavits to it. That's why it called Mr. William Schuyler, who was a former commissioner of patents, who was chosen by the patent office to represent them at the federal judge's office in Washington, D.C. He looked at this within 2 weeks. His quote was, the evidence is overwhelming that the invention works. There is no factual contradictory evidence, and the patent office had knowingly not followed the formalities of the patent law, because the patent law says that they will accept affidavits of operability because they have no facilities for testing. I did that in great honesty, yet those men were treated those men who put their reputation on the line, I felt sorry for them because they were insulted. They were treated like, almost like they were criminals or something, rather than respect their courage that these men put their reputation on the line. They should have been accepted. They should have been respected for what they had done, and that's what the master gave them. He said the evidence was overwhelming that the invention works. Now with that, what I'd like to do is just give a back history on what I had done. I tried to explain the essence of that in the patent application, that this is converting mass into energy on an E equals mc squared basis on a 100% conversion process, because I tap into the basic building block of matter, which is the energy within a magnetic field. It is kinetic energy, exactly as James Clerk Maxwell and Michael Faraday stated if they existed to this day. And they came here and saw this test, what they would say to this board. When they see this test, they say, sure, this man is right, but I have a question for y'all. What has taken y'all so long? I told you this 100 years ago, and I ask you caringly to do not take me granted, to take me seriously. Now that's what he quotes in this book. I cannot explain this. He says, but I want to be interpreted literally about the mechanical aspect of this energy. And he was begging humanity to pay attention to that. And I say that very humbly, that I have great respect for Faraday. I have great respect for Maxwell. Now what I'd like to do is to point out that these batteries, which were made for me by Rayovac Battery Company, Rayovac got interested in this because when I built that 10,000 pound unit, I could take 6-volt dry cell batteries, hook it to it, and the battery voltage on the outside of the housing would get so high, if you reached to disconnect it, it'd jump a spark from that battery pack to your finger. I called Rayovac and talked with Pat Spellman, who was the chief chemist, and I asked him a question. Do you know any way I can take 6-volt dry cell batteries that you make, hook them to a motor, put a load on that motor, and that your battery pack will get such a charge on it, if you try to disconnect it, it will jump off and touch you? He said, now who saw this besides you? And I could tell that he didn't believe me. I said, you call Dr. Hastings, he's up close to you. He called him. I called him back a week later. He said, can I come and see that? He came down, he got behind it. He was even shown on that tape that he believed that the batteries were indeed having more back charge coming back to them than they were capable of putting out. In fact, after these same batteries were ran on an automobile that was written about in Discover magazine back in 1986, these batteries are over 7 years old. They have been dropped, they have been busted. You can see even right here, I was running a little car and hit on a dirt road, which my wife witnessed, and they bounced out. It fell on the ground. In fact, it busted out the back end of the case. And they still keep, even though the voltage is way down, it's down from 250 volts down to 224 volts with no load up on this system. And of course, that's a false voltage when you see 224. As soon as you pull anything, the voltage falls on down. These batteries are basically dead. Anywhere in the world that you go and buy batteries, that if it's sitting on the shelf and you put a voltmeter on it and it shows a 10% drop on that battery, you won't buy it. And they recommend that you don't buy it because the batteries are basically dead and it won't run any kind of mechanical device that exists today. Now what I'm going to show you is I'm interested in the voltage, exactly as I teach in the patent application. Because contrary to what the conventional people thought back in 1820, where they said that a conductor was non-magnetic, it is exactly the opposite. It is so magnetic, it deceives the observer, because the atoms in that conductor will align and disalign at the speed of light with no hysteresis losses. It happens in the conventional magnetic iron materials. And what you will see is that this machine does exactly as I predicted. And I think it's important to recognize that I didn't build any of these machines until my patent attorney told me, Joe, nobody's going to believe you unless you build it. And when I built it, they worked exactly as I say it does. And I simply put a lot of wire in here. I use neodymium magnets, the strongest magnets that I can get, exactly as I teach in the patent application. The stronger the magnets, the more energy you're going to have coming from that. The more wire you put on it, the wire consists of atoms. The more atoms that you put in that system, then when you put the voltage to it, the hydraulic pressure aligns those atoms. It then comes outside the boundaries of the material, exactly as happens with a permanent magnet. When you look up how you make a permanent magnet, I think several of y'all are chemists. You look up how they make a magnet, and they are recognized in Bell Lab. I was amazed when I went down to the library in 1965, because I put up a test for myself in 1965 to prove or disprove my own theory. And I'm a very honest person, and I said, I'm going to go to the library and see how you make a magnet a magnet. And if I find that the amount of energy it takes to make a magnet is totally dependent upon the power input, I would know I was wrong, that you could never get more out of that system than you put into it. Now, when I went to the library and talked with a young lady, she gave me several books in the card index, gave me several books on magnetism. I was shocked, I was amazed, because it says Bell Labs had made a device that they could literally hear the molecules kick into alignment on a material when it was being magnetized. And once it got maximum atom alignment, no amount of power input would make that given material significantly any stronger. Now that instantly told me I was right, because the magnetic field was not dependent on the power input, because if it was, it'd have no limit. If you increase the power by a zillion times, then the strength of that magnetic field would also increase by a zillion times. It was obvious that it was headed totally to the material, and it was proven to me because it said also, you can take a given volume of iron, put X current into it, X power into it, you'd get a weak magnetic field, making it a magnet. However, if you take out a portion of it, mix it with nickel and cobalt, and then put the same X power into it, now you would have a very strong magnetic field. Again, proven to me, the magnetic field did not come from the power input, it came from the atom makeup of that material. And the very fact that you cannot get any more power from that system by putting infinite current or wattage into making a magnet, once you get atom alignment, tells you then it doesn't come from the power input. It comes from the atom alignment in that material. The same is true in this copper wire. And the proof of that, following the scientific method, that the facts prove and disprove the theory, is when I run this, I'm going to run it off of dead batteries. And what I would like to do is show you that the batteries are dead and the voltmeter works well. Let me show you that the Fluke 80 series meter is the best handheld meter that you can buy today. And I got this meter because I've been using oscilloscopes. I had a lot of people who were physicists and people I could tell did not understand an oscilloscope. They didn't recognize that if you don't isolate it from ground, that you can dump this energy. And on the average oscilloscope, you've got about 4 different ways before you ever get to the op amp that it goes to ground before it ever gets to an op amp in the oscilloscope. It won't show you that negative spike if you dump it, but if you isolate it from ground, it will show it to you. And Dr. Hastings and other people all ran the test that they were supposed to. Now, an engineer called me from Tennessee. He said, "Mr. Newman, are you familiar with the Fluke 85, 87 meter?" I said, "No, I'm not." I was familiar with the Fluke meter. I knew about them. And he said, "Joe, if you get that meter and hook it to your machine, it runs negative." He said, "Any competent electrical engineer in the world will believe you because it is the most precise a handheld meter that you can buy." He said, "It's almost equivalent to an oscilloscope and it's isolated from ground. It makes 40 readings per second. So any fast spike, it will pick up, it will analog that, and it will give you that reading. And it will tell you which way that current is going, negative or positive. It will show any maximum, your maximum. It will show you your minimum. It will show you your average." And I agree. Of all the meters I have used, it is the best handheld meter that I have ever used. The manufacturer himself, he says the same thing. It is a frequency counter. It is a capacitance tester. The Fluke 80 series multiple meters mean you need fewer tools on the job. It says the Fluke 80 series meter is the best family of multiple meters ever offered because it gives you more measurements capability for state-of-the-art analog and digital performance. It says for changing unstable signals, the fast analog display updates 40 times per second. Now you think about that. If you got a sharp spike of current going and several of them in that unit when it's rotating, say at 800 to 1,000 revolutions a minute, and you're breaking that cycle every 180 degrees, I am on this motor, it's going to show you any spike that has occurred. It's going to average it to you, and it will show it to you. Now, you take a conventional meter that's got a needle on it, it cannot do that. It cannot move that fast. And you can prove that to you. I can take any meter, and I can hook it to a battery and short it out, and it won't show it to you. I can do it like that real quick, and you'll see the spark fly off of there, but that meter won't show it to you. It will not show you that current, because that meter cannot move that fast. This meter will show you that. Anything you do to it, it will give it to you. Now, it's not just said about, I'm not just saying this, this Fluke manufacturer stands behind this statement. I have called them and asked them if they stand behind what they say. They do to a T. Now with that, I'd like to show you that the meter that I have here is working correctly. I'll hook it across one of these batteries. This is hooked to the, get these wires separated. You'll notice that I have this hooked where it's supposed to, the red showing the voltage. The negative is over here to the common. This is on the voltage. And what I'd like to do is take the positive, hook it to the positive side of this battery. I'd like to hook this to the negative side of this battery. And it's showing plus, and you'll notice the plus sign is way down, showing 223.5 volts. And the plus sign, you'll notice the manufacturer makes the plus sign very small because he says any competent engineer knows how to hook up the meter right, so I don't need to track his attention to it. But you'll notice something now. If I turn this around and I hook it up backwards, and I put the plus over here to the negative, and I take the minus and put it over here to the plus, then the manufacturer, he puts a big minus sign saying, "Hey, stupid, you hooked it up backwards." And which all of us do. You know, I've done it, y'all have done it, and but they bring it to your attention, and you can see the meter's working correctly. And what I'd like to do is now fix this same meter to read the amperage. I'll put this over on 10 amps. I'm going to hook it to my motor. I've already got the positive side of this motor over here. I'm going to take it out just for a second here. I'm going to hook this to the negative side of my motor. Therefore, I want to hook the positive side of the meter because I'm going to hook the negative side of this meter to the negative side of this battery. I'm going to hook the positive side, therefore, to my motor. Put this in the, maybe if you'll pick that up for me and just hold it. This is under pressure, so you might have to stand up to see this. I hope you all can see it. Sure. Chris, could I get you to come around here and hold this motor for me, please? This thing vibrates so much as a reciprocating pump, it tends to want to back off backwards. You can see that this meter runs negative. And this meter will show that it checks itself while this is going on. And it goes anywhere from 100 to up to even to 300 milliamps negative. And you can tell that that is definitely under pressure. You know, the unit is definitely doing work. There's no way, and I have a standing offer, $10,000. I've been on the news with this, radio shows with this. Anybody in the world, bring me a conventional motor, put it under load, hook this meter to it, and make it run negative, I'll give $10,000. There ain't a man alive who will give me $10,000 that my motor will not do this. I've challenged it. I've been on radio shows about it. My honesty and business people who call me and the public who hear me said, Joe Newman, I don't even have to see this. I know you speak the truth by the vigor in your voice, and that you need to get this out. We all need it, and it will change humanity. I've always said that this is more to bring world peace. All the kings and queens and politicians who ever lived. And this is a new thing in history, that if James Clerk Maxwell and Faraday today existed, they would be very excited about and said, this man has done what I humbly asked y'all to do. And they had put their reputation on the line, because at the time they were talking about the old theory. They said the old theory would cause its potential energy and does not give any mechanical explanation. And they were saying in our theory, we're saying this, that it's matter in motion, and we wish to be understood literally. And in Maxwell's original work, he uses the word momentum throughout it. You can't have momentum without matter in motion. The people who followed him didn't understand his brilliance, so they took out the word momentum, put in the word vector, and to this day they're teaching the same thing they were teaching back at Faraday's time and Maxwell's time, which they themselves ridiculed. This motor works exactly as they said it. They were implying it would work. They were saying if somebody takes our work and goes forward with it, they were implying you will come up with this, that it's matter in motion. It's like a river. You can tap into it. Stand on our shoulders, and we're begging you to go forward with this. I can let it run just as long as y'all want it to, or I can just...
The motor doesn't heat up, Joe.
Yeah, and the motor does not get hot at all. That's the other thing, because I don't use any current on a conventional motor, and in fact, every scientist who came to me and touched the wire, they said, immediately, no, the motor's getting cold. I said, no, it's not. I said, the brain's playing the trick on you, because every motor you've ever touched, even a little toy motor, gets warm. So you're expecting it to get hot, but it doesn't. And they wouldn't believe me though until I put a thermometer on it and show them it's still at room temperature. Because a piece of metal does normally feel colder, you know, than a desk or something when you touch it in a room. And it's easy to let your mind trick you if you have a fixed opinion in your mind.